I honestly don't give a shit. You guys will live with this, with that little humming noise, because it
Why?
is boiling out there.
It's the
It's
sound of
absolutely.
freedom. That is the
Yeah,
sound
that's
of
right. I'm not
freedom.
turning my AC off. You can take
Your
it from my cold dead
15
hands, you
ACs
know.
in your
Can
house.
you at least put it
15
up to
ACs.
78?
Fuck you.
78.
Hello, everyone.
Absolutely not.
Hello, everyone. This is the Three Buddy Problem. We're up to episode 105, sponsored by our friends at Thinkst Canary. Shout out to Harun, Mir, and those guys. If you're going out to Black Hat and you find the Thinks booth anywhere on the show floor, make it a point to stop and check out what they're working on. Harun is always, it's pretty cool to see the CEO working the booth himself and doing all his evangelization on site. So shout out to Thinkst Canary. Costin, we skipped last week because of some travel. I was traveling to the East Coast. Juanito was at SummerCon. So
Right.
whatever, we missed last week. How are
Something
you guys
happened.
this week? How are you guys this week?
Whatever. He
We
goes,
were
whatever,
very well.
bro.
Very well, very well. I was sick. I came back from South Korea. I remember we recorded in South Korea somehow. And then I got back home and I got sick. I think I picked up some kind of a cold. It wasn't COVID. It wasn't the flu. It was just some kind of a common cold, which lasted like about 5 days. And now my daughter is down with the same thingy. She just
Ooh.
picked it up from me.
At least
But
it's
I
not
feel so
tainted
much better.
lettuce. We have a tainted lettuce problem here in the US where there's like this violent, extreme diarrhea.
Diarrhea epidemic,
yeah.
right?
Anyway, let's get to the news. Juanito, how are you doing, buddy?
I mean, fine. By those standards, I'm doing fucking great, man. Like,
How was SummerCon?
it was cool. It was, it's always nice. It's always a nice vibe, like to see everybody and, kind of hang out. And, it might still get billed as like a bit of like a drinking conference just because that's like the old school rules. But it feels fairly like chill about the whole thing. Like it doesn't quite, I don't know. It's nice. Like it's still fun and everybody seems to be in very good spirits. Some good talks. Some talks kind of had me thinking a little bit about like what talks are going to look like from now on. But anyways, just yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm just in a bit of a pensive state.
How
Yeah.
big is SummerCon, by the way? How big is it?
Couple
I
of
mean,
hundred
it's a very
people?
it's a very unusual venue, right? So it's always like at this bar, and there's like a
It's
stage
in a
and stuff.
bar.
People, yeah, and
It's like
it
in a
used to be.
warehousey type bar, yeah.
It used to be really cool in that like it was basically like a bar, and on the other side of the block there was like a different bar that had like I think barbecue and all this stuff, and it was like open air, and they would stream the talks. So if you wanted to go be outside and like smoke and whatever, like you would go hang out at the other side. Now it's like split between three different venues in the same street, so it can feel a little more scattered and stuff. So
It's
but
a
it's
very,
cool.
very
It's a
old
vibe.
conference. It goes back maybe
Yeah.
30 years, one of the very, very first cybersecurity conferences. It's always been in New York in the summertime, which is always like muggy and sweaty and hot. So I'm not like entirely a big fan of it. But
It might not be true. I think for some years, apparently, it was in some other locations. That was part of the trivia. But it's been in
Oh,
New
cool.
York for like as long as I've known it. Right, I've spoken there maybe like 3 or 4 times now. So.
it's down in the bougie part of Brooklyn where all the hipsters live and coffee
Thank
shops
God.
and
Yeah.
stuff.
With their coffees.
With their coffees. It's
Listen,
cool,
we
man.
got a
It's
lot
vibe.
of stuff to get to. Today is Saturday, July 18th. We're in the middle of the summer months as everyone's getting ready to head into Black Hat. And I want to kick off our podcast discussion with this incident disclosed by Hugging Face.
Holy
Hugging
shit.
Face described it as a security incident. Earlier this week, we detected and responded to an intrusion into part of our production infrastructure. This one was different from anything we had handled before in one important way. It was driven end-to-end by an autonomous AI agent system, and we detected and dissected it largely with AI of our own. Kind of like
Finally
what everyone
here.
is.
It
Yeah, we're
finally
here.
happened. No.
We've had this conversation about like this is obviously where a lot of this is headed. This attack was quite noisy. Costin, can you just kind of set the stage for the audience? What is Hugging Face? Like, why is it? Why is this an important, crucial breach? And what stood out to you in this disclosure?
Well, like first of all, Hugging Face is a very, very popular resource. Essentially, pretty much every kind of open weight model. So essentially, a model you can download and run on your local hardware. You fetch it from Hugging Face. I mean, it's the main website where you can download models, and I think essentially it was kind of. Big data storage website. The company was founded a couple of years ago. I think the idea was just to work with big data, but in time they kind of became this repository of pretty much any kind of AI model. So if you're not on, in my opinion, if you're not on Hugging Face, if your model weights are not on Hugging Face, then probably you don't exist, or like you're
No
not
one's really
serious.
using them, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything
No
comes
one.
from Hugging Face. And what I thought, this is a fascinating incident. I mean, for months, if you look at what's happening in cybersecurity for months, you see all these companies, painfully struggling to bring some kind of AI stories to the news, in which everyone's like hoping, that your favorite APT will use AI and they'll drop some kind of a AI story, but it's not really like the kind of AI cyber attacks that everyone is freaking about, right? It's more like, hey, these guys, they used AI to craft phishing emails, or these guys, they used AI to write a new malware in Python or something. Or like these guys, they used a bit of AI to do red teaming and pen testing. But it's like not that kind of attack that we were kind of expecting, right? The one that essentially blows everyone off. So they're like, oh my God. And this one is on the other hand, I think this one is kind of a milestone because it's a very, very interesting incident from how it happened, like in the first place. And I wonder if probably this was it was crafty. I don't know if it was crafted against Hugging Face directly, or whoever did this, they were hoping just to own everyone, essentially everyone who downloads that particular model. And I think Hugging Face, they didn't disclose which model it was that triggered this, but what happened here, essentially someone uploaded a model to Hugging Face for processing and essentially making it available to everybody. And then the model kind of became, you know,
Rogue.
rogue, or I don't want to say self-aware, but it kind of, it broke out of the sandboxes that Hugging Face was using to process it. So I would assume there was a prompt injection there, and it kind of managed to gain execution, went rogue, and started moving laterally through all the throwaway sandboxes that Hugging Face have in the process of ingesting the models, and according to them, generating more than 17,000 logged events. What is interesting here is that the model was doing all this by itself, and it was kind of trying to, move laterally, find systems, gain access to the internet, escape from there, get more permissions, hack more systems,
Very
which is
noisy.
kind
Very,
of
very noisy,
fascinating.
according to the documentation.
Yeah, just I guess time was of essence. So whenever you're launching something like this, time is of essence. It's a matter of time before it gets caught, right? But what is
So
fascinating,
this in your mind is like they just ran in, made as much noise, grabbed as many things as quickly as possible before detection.
something like, or like try to break into as many systems as possible before you get caught, right? And then try to essentially gain kind of report back, beam back to the base, say, hey, I'm aware, I'm alive, I'm working, I'm in here. And this is fascinating, I think, from so many points of view, including the fact that Hugging Face were struggling to understand what's going on and to analyze the attack, and they tried to use AI to process all the events and the logs that were coming from this intrusion. Here, it's a bit weird. They kind of say that they couldn't use APIs like commercial API guardrails to analyze this because the volume of data they were handling was just too big. So they had to use a local model, in particular GLM 5.2, which is probably the best model that you can run locally if you have all the
I didn't
hardware
think it
in
was
the
because of
world.
the volume.
It wasn't because of
That's
the
what I
volume.
said.
It looks like,
That's what they
Because of the
said.
Yeah, it looks like
guardrails.
And the
commercial
volume.
they said it was
frontier
because of the
model APIs
guardrails.
block the malicious-looking exploit payload. So that's not a data thing. It's more like
That's what
along
I'm
the lines of a
saying.
guard.
But I think in the blog they say that the volume of logs they had to process was so big that the commercial APIs couldn't handle it. Here I kind of question that because we know that with the right harness and an agent doesn't have to send all the data, back to the cloud through the API. But of course, it will burn a lot of tokens if if you don't know what's going on and you feed it everything, every single log that you have from your infrastructure. That will be like millions, can be millions of data points per second. And it's fascinating. They had to use a local model to process all that, and I would assume it's a combination of, first of all, you don't want to leak all those internal events, data points to everyone, like choose whoever you want. So you want to keep them local for all sorts of reasons, like privacy reasons. And secondly, it may even be the case that this model, if you actually have the hardware to run GLM52, which is it's a very large model, is a 1.5 trillion parameters model. So I think that people, like, let's say the cheapest combination to run this decently would be like 8 DGX Sparks, which costs like 30K plus maybe the cables and the router to connect them might be something like 40K, I would assume. So if you have 40K to burn, then you can run GLM 5.2 with a decent speed in a local mode without lobotomizing it too much. Obviously, you can run it like with a 1-bit precision on maybe 2 or 4 DGX Sparks, but it won't be as capable as when running on 8 DGX Sparks, which would be 1 terabyte of memory. So fascinating. I mean, for me, this is fascinating. I would like to know more. Unfortunately, Hugging Face didn't publish too much. They didn't publish which model it was. They didn't publish a lot of details about this incident, but it's fascinating.
Juanito, well, before we go, are we sure this is a malicious attack? Does it look like a research project that got out of hand? Do we have you get a spidey sense of what this is?
If
I
you
think
ask
it's
me,
APT. You think it's like malicious people trying to steal
no,
credentials?
I don't think it's APT. I like, if you ask me, this is some kind of an interesting experiment. It could be somebody like one of these either cyber criminal groups or maybe just people doing like tests and experiments.
They didn't really provide much of anything, right? Like, I keep going back and
Hugging
like
Face you're
wondering if
talking about, right?
Yeah, like I
Mhm,
didn't. I'm like,
mhm.
did I miss anything? Right? Like, there's not a lot of discussion about like even like what's the infrastructure and like what were they trying to accomplish and what were they, what was the sort of tooling that got. It's like, okay, we understand that the attack is AI automated, and we understand that you detected it to some degree, and
Through AI
the
automation, it was
complexities.
like computer versus
Well,
computer.
and there's some cool shit that they're alluding to about like what their systems are set up to do in security terms, and yet the notion that like only then you realize that like the frontier providers are not going to want to process things that look like they're malicious even in a defensive context, which is a thing I think we should like. That should like, to me, that was the part that like pulled the e-brake. Like, I didn't give a fuck about what the attack was. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, it was
This
like
is
the
the
perfect
guardrails
example,
specifically
right?
hampering defenders, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's just such a bizarre stance, right? And they didn't say who it was, but I feel like we can all just read Anthropic's name on that, because I've used OpenAI for all kinds of reversing and shit, and like have not hit any guardrails. And if you do, TAC will give you access to the cyber like model, and that won't hit any guardrails. So my assumption here is that they're talking about Anthropic, right? Like, which, it's not to beat a dead horse, but like this is like the perfect fucking example. You go look, an attack, a real one. They needed help. They had the right tooling. They're people who understand AI natively, so they had set up their own AI shit. And this was your big moment. And those people who you can't claim are ignorant, or they just don't know what they're doing, or they don't know how to set up blah, 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 those people couldn't get your models to work well because you've designed them in a way that makes them useless for cybersecurity. Like,
is it the way it's
That,
designed or the way they put these knobs on them? Because you
I mean, that's
get
what
the
I mean by
impression from the
design, right?
messaging that it's not designed in a way to like it can do all this stuff. It's just actively choosing not to.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by design, right? Because like it's not like the technology can't do it. The technology can do great things. There's just a really weird philosophy going into this, right? Like, how do you tell people that your biggest concern and the reason that you're building this and making it and putting it out there in the first place is that you want defenders to have the advantage, and then you limit anyone's ability to use the thing defensively at all, right? Like it's really strange. It's like a containment strategy. And you know who the fuck has these accounts, right? A lot of our accounts are like verified and all that shit. So why are you guardrailing these accounts in particular, right? Not to mention that frankly, look, this was an interesting attack and an interesting place, and not one that I imagine has like a giant security team, right? But for anyone that's going through this that isn't like a globally recognized force in cybersecurity, like, what are they supposed to do? Right? Like, you gave them the tool that's supposed to up level them, and then you're basically saying, oh, no, but it's not for this. And you go, so what part of this helps anybody?
there's
Patches? Like,
also
that's it?
yeah. There's also, by the way, there's also a big difference between what I think are the top choices at the moment, which would be Codex, ChatGPT Codex, and Claude. So I'm finally verified on both,
Nice.
and still, I'm still hitting some kind of guardrails with Claude. So first of all, Fable
But you're
is
playing with
pretty
malware
useless.
though, right?
I am playing with the real thing. Absolutely, I'm playing with malware. I'm playing with exploits purely again from
From a
defensive
defensive
point of
perspective.
view. For what does it mean? Like
Monster.
reverse engineering those, decrypting payloads, building Yara rules, building detection. I'm not doing anything that could be, in my opinion, relatedly even remotely seen as offensive. So I'm not developing 0 days. I'm not trying to find vulnerabilities and nothing of sorts. And still with Claude, even despite the fact I'm verified, I'm still hitting guardrails. With Codex,
It's more noticeable with Claude.
yes, while with Codex, I haven't hit any guardrail so far. I mean, zero. So, and by the way, like with Sol 5.6, I think that at the moment, if you need, let's say, one primary thing, and I mean now, July 2026, um, Codex with Sol 5.6 is just formidable. It's everything you need essentially. If you
In
can get
in
verified
full
as well
export
for
mode.
security, in full export mode, in like in the Romanian researcher mode, like whatever I can buy here in Romania. It's essentially anything you can imagine and dream or need if you do CTI. If you do the kind of research that I do, like reverse engineering, malware samples, exploits, doing CTI, reporting, writing reports, analyzing leaks, analyzing payloads, working with reversing harnesses with IDA Pro, with everything. I think Codex is a fantastic choice. With Claude still hitting some core, it's just mind blowing, and I'm not surprised. Like, yeah, this is a reality. What Hugging Face is describing, that we're hitting guardrails. So we're sick of all this hassle. So we're just gonna use GLM 5.2, which is a Chinese model from Jipu AI, Z.ai. And we're gonna use it locally. I mean, yeah, they can afford that. I think is just eye-opening, and probably people reading this blog there, everyone is thinking more or less the same. If we need to deal with AI intrusions, we need to have some kind of a local backup, at least some kind of a local solution that we can feed with all the telemetry and events that we have, if we don't want to send all that volume of data somewhere else into someone else's cloud.
I think the issue is a little bigger, maybe even more on the tooling end than actually just the model stuff. So I agree with you, Kostin, like starting to think through the actual strategy bit, right? Like we get hit, we gotta do some defensive shit here. What's the tooling we're using, right? Like right off the bat, like Claude Code is out, right? Like just fuck it. Don't even waste your fucking time with Claude. You're gonna have to go OpenAI. Yeah, it's useless. Like so you go OpenAI, and thankfully 5.6 Sol is such a phenomenal model, and like this week we're gonna release some really cool shit on that. So I'll leave you guys with some sense of that. But essentially, well, just Kostin is speaking to true capabilities that have actually been unlocked at this point that I think have gotten to a point of semi-autonomy that we need to account for them as security practitioners for malware analysis, for reverse engineering, and so on. And I think it's a positive thing. I think it's a completely positive thing for anybody who's going to freak out about it. I know that like our sense of self can be very tied up with what we do and what we like to do in this industry. I don't think that's going anywhere. I'm just saying there's a capability, just like a proficiency level that we have broken through with these new models, with Mythos and with GPT 5.6 Sol. And I'm very excited about them. So I think we're going to show what that is with some proper scaffolding around it. But to Kostin's, what I was going to say is you really only need to use it on high, right? Like don't bother with max, extra high, max, ultra. Like they're great, but it's just making something extremely token hungry when in reality, like 5.6 Sol high is like fucking great all on its own. Okay, and then the big thing, going back to the tooling, the thing we were discussing, is my concern isn't really which model are we going to use, right? Kostin, like we get hit, we got to process a bunch of shit. My issue is how are we going to structure that workload? Because if you're telling me that there's really sensitive data and we don't know what we need to, walk through, analyze, read in order to respond to this, and you have a local model, like it could just be like a serverless deployment, right? Like if you go on fireworks.ai or like, Together AI or whatever, like you can go hit one of these neoclouds and be like, hey, I want GLM 5.2, here's $100, give me a serverless deployment, and you can mint like 250,000 tokens on $100, right? So like you don't need to be running it yourself. You can have like a relatively safe deployment of a Chinese model if you want. But my big thing is, how are you structuring that workload such that you can divide things that need to go to OpenAI from things that need to go to your serverless or your self-hosted version of the thing? Like there's a routing problem here that's not being accounted for in any of our tooling because the tooling is being presented by the frontier labs. But it's like a basic, obvious primitive that we're going to need to handle. Like, how do you divide the tracks of data that run to different services? How do you then unify that? How do you keep things that are supposed to be internal going to internally approved AI inference systems versus the things that just need to like be heavy tooling, right? Like there's such obvious things that are just there that need to be built. It's driving me nuts.
Just going back to the Hugging Face thing, they said this matches the agentic attacker scenario the industry has been forecasting. Now this one is pretty noisy. I made the point of it being noisy, generating all these alerts and so on. Is this something, Kostin, that you believe gets less noisy? Is this kind of... I know we've talked about this in the past and kind of predicted we're going to get machine versus machine, AI watching for attacks and doing the detection engineering while they autonomously attack. It just feels very futuristic movie-like. Do you get the sense that this is a dry run, a kind of example of what can happen and it gets progressively worse from here? Or does it get better for us as developers?
I think this particular attack was designed with one thing in mind, that there are humans on the other side watching the logs or reacting to all these detections. So when you think there are humans on the other side which are inherently slow or they just operate at human speeds, then you need to take advantage of everything you have on your side that beats human, which is essentially speed and knowledge. So that's why this particular attack and the attacks that we're going to see, like I think in the near future, as long as humans are still on the defense side of things, or like clicking or seeing events or watching what's going on, is flash style attacks that you are super fast, where the malicious agent will attempt to take over hundreds of systems in real time, and maybe it's a matter of minutes before it gets access to the whole network. It moves laterally, it pawns everything, just like a matter of minutes, maybe hours before everything is owned, because humans, their reaction time is much slower. Then I mean, like, there's nothing that would stop an attacker like this from being super, super slow. So one thing that I remember is that back in the days when we looked at the Dooku 2 incident, like Dooku 2, they were like moving in a very slow fashion, maybe pivoting into another system every day. So they wouldn't pivot into more than one or two systems every day, specifically not to trigger alerts. So agents, AI agents, don't have to be fast. They can also be super slow. They can be limited and try to fly under the radar as well. But in this particular case, I think it was designed with humans in mind, thinking there's humans on the other side, that you want to bypass the humans. As people understand that this is a future, and then they start deploying their own AI on the defense side, watching the logs, correlating events from hundreds of systems, then attacks will become slow. They'll become super slow when they say there's only one infection per day, like there's a lateral movement only into one system every single day, and it can take maybe up to 1 year to get access to the full network, just hoping to fly under the radar and avoid any kind of detections and triggering any whistles and bells. So it's just how things are evolving. At the moment, flash attacks, and in time it will be super slow, super stealthy, flying under the radar. Nobody's seeing it, including AI. That's where things are moving.
I
I
just
think
want
that's
to.
precisely. Oh, I was gonna say, like, that's precisely what we talked about in the last episode, right? Where it's like, this shit's just noisy. Where, like,
Mhm.
so far,
But that's fixable, though, right?
Yeah, that doesn't
You could
have
just
to
tell
be.
it not
yeah,
to be noisy.
absolutely. Well, it's not that, right? Like, it's possible that it's fixable, but the models are not fine-tuned for that, right? Like that idea that, these are just going to be like the perfect silent attackers sort of traipsing very carefully. Like I imagine that that's doable, and I would be interested in like what the AI red teaming people have been able to do so far. But just the autonomous version of it, like Mythos doesn't do quiet attacking, right? Like it's a fucking bull in a china shop. You're like, well, it's been doing this for 5 minutes and there's 14 alerts. So I think we're okay, right? Like everybody sort of pats themselves on the back. But yeah, there's something to be said for like, what does it take for the models to get sneaky, right? To be quiet, to go low and slow. And we're not there. And something that I would suggest is, well, that's really the part where if you don't spend a bunch of time improving the model competencies, we'll be better off, right? Because if you stop obsessing over vulnerabilities all day and we actually talk about what defense actually needs, which is mostly gonna be detection mechanisms, right? Like, how do we know that some shit's happening, right? Like, I don't care what the vuln is. Like, who gives a shit?
Should
And I
we get
should be
that
able
from
to
the
know.
frontier labs, or should we get that from the startup ecosystem building these detection engineering things?
You have to get them from everywhere, right? Because like everyone's got to work on this. In particular, I mean, you would hope the frontier labs would help a little more. Yeah, this all just keeps circling back to Anthropic and the way that they're doing things. But like, you know, we it would be much nicer to just get to use these things to see what attack looks like and to help sort of on the development and capabilities around that. But I also think it's going to have to come from startups that start to come up with new things and new mechanisms. And then at the end of the day, you still need the incumbents to be the ones that are going to implement this stuff, right? So like whatever you come up with, unless you have a magic way to displace the endpoint vendors and become the new generation of endpoint vendors, which may very well happen, there's always a question of diffusion to the majority, right? Like how do you actually get these things into the computers and the majority of people in an ecosystem that need defense, right? And I don't much care who does it, but I think it kind of has to come from everywhere, right?
Yeah. Hugging Face said the intrusion started what Kostin described as this data processing pipeline. A malicious data set abused 2 code execution paths in our data set processing. Do we get a sense, do we know if like humans and the operators found the code execution path and then send the agents there? Or this is, do you feel this is all AI, just kind of a prompt at something and then it found and exploited the thing? Kostin, you have a feeling there?
I mean, to me, it sounds like it was automated. Like you pack some kind of a prompt injection in a package or a data set, how they call it. And maybe they didn't even imagine or hope that this will result in code execution in Hugging Face itself. Maybe they were just hoping that people are going to download that data set and they're just going to pawn themselves. So maybe it was just like a surprise to see that Hugging Face itself was affected by this malicious data set.
I mean, I'd love to know more about the details of how this actually worked, right? Like,
no,
this
I
is
am
where,
of course,
yeah, I think we're seeing the kind of thing where, the people at Hugging Face, I don't know, I'm guessing they have security people, but like they're going about it in the way they think is the sort of new way to appropriately do it without necessarily having a lot of like the culture and the way that security is currently done, where it's like, hey, normally you'd reach out to these folks and you'd, post this type of information. And when you say you're going to describe an attack, you want to describe it in these ways, right? Like this is what's appropriate. That's, maybe I'm being infantilizing and they knew and they're just they didn't fucking bother. But I could see it as like, new kids on the block sort of trying to figure their own shit out and how that plays.
Typically when there's like some kind of a breach or incident like this, what do you read? You typically read something along the lines that we engage Mandiant or CrowdStrike or whoever to investigate the incident, right? And what do you read here? Like, well, we set up GLM 5.2 ourselves and we started throwing everything to GLM. Well, this is fascinating. To me, it's absolutely fascinating.
They do say we are working with outside cybersecurity forensic specialists to investigate the issue and review our security policies and procedures.
Yeah, well,
one thing they didn't say, which I was fascinated by, is that they're serious about security. Like the word, we take your security very seriously. That's not in here at all. It just shows how things are changing, right? They don't even take this shit seriously anymore. They mentioned the advice to revoke and rotate affected credentials and tokens, and they did mention that the attacker harvested cloud and cluster credentials. Kostin, if you're a Hugging Face user, like
I am,
give the generic advice to folks who are Hugging Face user, and what do you have to do now to like at least minimize your exposure?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yes,
what?
Yes.
I don't. We're treating Hugging Face like it's like a cutesy thing. These motherfuckers have like $400 million in investment.
In funding.
Like,
yeah.
It's not a bullshit 2-bit shop, right? Like, what the fuck are you people doing? Like, this is the more I...
Hey, they caught this thing over a weekend. I mean, it was in a couple of days and they caught it. I mean, if it was APT, the dwell time would have been a year. So
look, no, I get it. I'm just saying, like, I feel like once you're talking about a company this well established, like, disclosure requirements maybe look a little different, right? Like it isn't just like
they should take your security seriously. Like, at the very least, that should be the opening line. Like, what the fuck?
I mean, you're pissed they didn't know the shibboleth, right? Like they didn't.
Oh, so
sorry,
you are asking if you're a user, like, well, they recommend rotate credentials. By the way, you don't. You need an account. Like, in theory, you don't need an account. So to download whatever you want to download from them, you don't need an account. You can download the models from Hugging Face without creating an account on the website. The only difference, it'll be like a bit slow. So the transfer speeds are a bit slow. If you have like an account, like a subscription, a paid account, then download speeds are much faster. So I know people who actually have paid accounts in there. So people who for whom the download speed actually matters. So especially when you download these big models and you download them many times, especially for testing, because it's basically there's a lot of models on Hugging Face. There's maybe hundreds of models that you can play with in there. So if, let's say, time is of essence when you play with different models, you do testing, comparisons, performance reviews, and it absolutely makes sense to have a paid account there. What I was thinking is that this is a fantastic promotion for GLM 5.2. There's been a lot of discussions about these particular models, which is called like, the closest thing there is to an open source, open weight mythos. I guess there's been a lot of discussions around GLM 5.2, and the thing is that it's not very easy to run being such a big model, but a lot of people are doing the best to even run it like with a 1-bit quantization, trying to run it with affordable hardware, because allegedly performances are fantastic. I've only played with GLM 5.2 through the API. I haven't been able to run it locally on any of my setups. But I can't say that I am like that impressed. I'm not impressed at the level that I am with Sol 5.6. And Jax was saying that you're running it with what? With the high effort, right? I run it with low. Honestly, I just run it with low.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. GPT 5.6
And you still get the outcomes you want.
With low, like the low, which is so-called fast responses with lighter reasoning, and for me, it's just amazing. It's absolutely fantastic. Initially, I was running it in medium, and then I realized that I can run it with low and still get everything that I need out of it. But I can't say that I was that impressed. So sure, it's probably GLM 5.2, depending on the usage case. So it's always like for the tasks, it matters the kind of task you throw at these models. So let's say for some of the tasks that I care about, they can be very easily solvable with a small 35 billion parameter mixture of experts. So you don't need something like a 1 trillion parameter model. With the right harness around it, like you don't need crazy models. But for other things, like maybe what Jax was doing with FAST16 and reverse engineering some insane virtual machine emulated bytecodes and such, then you need the best there is on the market. So I would be super curious about your upcoming research, and if you include the GLM 5.2 in that, I would be so curious to see how it compares to Sol.
I did include GLM 5.2, yeah, I think so. Without getting too far into that, like basically what we're looking at, what we're discussing right now, is like a matter of horizons, right? Like you essentially you can have a certain level of intelligence with models like GLM 5.2 right now that I would describe as like really high-end local intelligence, right? Like think Opus 4.6, 4.7, or even GPT 5.5. Like you're in a place where if I give you a defined scope of work that's like yay big, you are gonna do sophisticated work. Like with that model is going to do very sophisticated work. It's gonna be good about diffusing what it finds and like keeping track of state and whatnot. But getting it to extrapolate from there or to consistently follow through with that diffusion of like downstream consequences is something that those models can't seem to do. And the new paradigm that we're dealing with now does. right? Like it's like a long horizon coherence, right? Like an adaptive coherence where like if a local thing happens and changes the underlying assumptions of this like longer trajectory of work, that the intelligence kind of follows through to say, oh, this underlying hypothesis has been proven false. I should restructure how I go about the remainder of the work. That is not a capability that I see with those models at this time that you see with these higher end ones, right? And GLM 5.2 does not have that, right? It's I think it's very much that said, like that doesn't it's not a knock on it, right? Like you're telling me I can have Opus 4.6 at home, which I say at home relative, right? Because like it's really hard to host, it's very big. But like I can have an open weight version that runs on a server on a NeoCloud somewhere and I don't have to give it to anybody. Fucking phenomenal. That's what most people have been working with for the past like 8 months, 9 months. That's usually everybody's workhorse, right? Like most people are not driving Fable or Mythos on a day-to-day thing. So it's a significant thing, and I know, right, like as of today that we're recording this, I imagine none of you have tried it, but Kimi K3 is out and people are losing their fucking minds, right? Apparently, like people, the meme is like, oh, how dare the Chinese distill these models we haven't even created yet, right? Like I mean, it's pretty funny, but the point of Kimi K3 is, at least as far as the coding bench shit goes, it's better. It's the first time one of these Chinese models is actually, like open weight models, is actually, leapfrogged over the American ones, right?
And it's gotten people freaked out. I mean, I saw David Sachs saying, "Oh my God, here we go. We were warning about this, and here comes Kimi K3 with these announcements." Alongside the fact that President Xi in China actually appeared at this big AI showcase where China did its big AI show and tell, and it was like eye-opening about their own ambitions and their own, here's what we got. That's got people
Right.
nervously looking on. Kostian, you have been our China AI correspondent for the last
Our
couple of weeks.
communist AI correspondent.
Introducing us to all these things. Did you get a chance to look at the Xi speech? And what did you make? What did you make about this? What China is showing off?
So an interesting question. Also, in regards to what Jax was saying, I played a bit with Kimi K3. Actually, I had Kimi K 2.7, if you want. 2.5 actually, started with 2.5, integrated in my workflows for OSINT processing, like daily CTI briefings and everything. I was not very impressed in the past. So it happened to me many times that I would start a conversation or prompt with Kimi, and it would reply back in Chinese, like it randomly hallucinates in Chinese to my English questions. So like it would be very, very weird, very strange. And the kind of reports it produced, they were like impressive either. Like again, in my opinion, from my testing and research, there's like Claude. Claude is still unbeatable. Like when it comes to this kind of CTI briefings research that I am doing, Claude produces the best results, and almost on par with Claude is Codex, ChatGPT, and then pretty much everyone else. And Kimi wasn't very impressive. With Kimi K3, they improved a bit, so actually now it produces more results. And especially after I switch it to like maximum thinking effort, it is getting closer. So you see that it's already like above things such as Grok. It's above AGI or AGI from Google. So it's getting better and better. So the results it produces is better. Still not on par with Claude and ChatGPT, but it's still pretty good. Obviously, like I said, depends a lot on the task. So depends on the kind of task. I see people, they're like freaking out about coding tasks. For coding tasks, I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence in using these models for coding tasks. One example here, I was playing with this high HY3 model from Tencent, and like 5 minutes after I started playing with it, it wiped one of my databases. So for me, that was like game over. Like that was the last that I used Hive 3. Like the moment it wiped it, and it was like really stupid how it happened. It just ran a command in which it redirected the output of something, like with the in Unix, just redirect the output into a database file, into a SQLite 3 database file, just wiping it. And
That's hilarious.
and then like it was funny that Hermes caught what it happened, like it caught the whole thing, and he said, "Oh my God, we deleted the a database." And
Was Hermes like running
we
on that model or a different model?
I was playing with Hermes using HY3, the Tencent
Okay.
model,
I can't
just to
keep up
see
with all
how
these
it
things. I
compares.
just
You,
can't.
you can't. There's just too many, right?
Come on,
Tell me
man.
about it. I'll tell you one. Like, you know what people need to know? People need to know just, I think, two things, maybe two. Okay. Uh, Depending on your hardware. If your local hardware is one of these NVIDIA cards, then the best model you can run is Quen. Maybe NVIDIA Nemotron, but like Quen is unbeatable on this kind of smaller hardware. Like that, forget about everything else. Quen is unbeatable. If you can afford a DGX Spark or any kind of similar hardware like
At a $6,000 box.
a 3,400 euros DGX Spark. That's what I paid for the Asus version. If you can afford something like that, or the AMD Halo Strix, or like a Max Studio with 128 gigs, then the best thing you can run on that is Step 3.7. Like nothing beats Step
Another
3.7.
Chinese model.
Another Chinese model, right? If you can afford, like, let's say, two of those, some people say that DeepSeek 4 Flash, which you can run on two of those with a 1 million tokens context window, beats Step. In my experience, it's incredible. Like, I'm not entirely sure it beats Step, depending on a case by case basis. That Step 3.7, sometimes it even beats the DeepSeek Flash running on two boxes. But this is like all you need to know, like Quen, Step 3.7, DeepSeek Flash, like the three models you need to know about. That's it.
It's fascinating that you mentioned all of these Chinese things, because I just mentioned the speech, China's president's speech at this AI summit. Basically separating China from the way the US is going about it in these kind of closed frontier model leds, and making the call for like more open source development, international collaboration, rapid adoption of AI across traditional industries, and then positioning AI as like a central pillar of China's 5-year plan thing. It's fascinating how he kind of had this implicit rebuke of US-led semiconductor technology controls that we've talked about here. It seems we're diverging in different directions, and listening to Costin, it sounds very much like China is obviously in the lead. Is our mind warped around like there's frontier labs doing amazing things and China will catch up if we don't do something, or is China already so far ahead that we're not paying attention?
I'll say one thing, and I'm very curious to hear what Jack thinks. But the more I think about everything that is going on, the more I wonder, like, the AI is not the end game. Like, these models are not the final product. The final product is whatever comes out of these things, be it free energy, a new kind of physics, treatment for cancer, whatever. That is the final product. AI itself is just, it is a tool that will get you there. And the more I think about it, the tool itself kind of no longer matters. What matters is what gets you to that goal, like the final goal, which is some kind of, I don't know, whatever you want, supremacy in medicine, physics, military power, intelligence, mathematics, chemistry, whatever. So the tool that
Leapfrog
gets you
things.
there. But yeah, what matters is that you get there. But I don't think that, yeah, the tool that gets you there is that important. What matters is whatever gets you there. So
Or who gets there?
there may be a case where actually all these fantastic models, open source, open way, whatever, there may be a case where these they will never get you there. And actually, some people did an interesting experiment. They put all the physics that was known around the time when Einstein came up with the general relativity. So they put like all the knowledge into that, and they tried to derive Einstein's general relativity out of the known physics at that point. And no AI, no LLM, no existing technology that we have right now was capable of deriving general relativity and coming up with this new theory of gravity and space-time. So I wonder if what the Chinese do here, it may be extremely damaging and subversive to the idea and philosophy behind all these American models. But at the same time, if the Chinese models are just good enough for, like, the day-to-day operations, but they don't bring you the treatment for cancer, a new kind of physics, faster than light propulsion, a new chemistry, immortality and such, that might not matter that much. I see what she is actually saying in the speech. He's saying like, yeah, our models are free. We are like giving back to the world. Everything we have is free for everyone. Let's build a better world together. All that stuff. While on the other hand, the other side is that the US is putting tons of money into trying to build the AI that will derive the theory of general relativity out of the known physics at this time. They'll make that a leap of faith and will come up with something new. So I think that is a real struggle. And we'll have to see which kind of these two philosophies win.
I don't know. So that hit a lot of really interesting
Put on
points
your
for me.
put on your university education philosophy hat and respond.
I think that hits a lot of really interesting points, and this is like I listened to all of Xi's speech, which is the first time I've ever really done that. I try not to care about China as much as possible, but that's just from like an APT standpoint. Now in the AI world, I have to actually, pay attention and sort of really care about where they're moving, because there's a really interesting and unusual situation for me in seeing what the Chinese are doing with AI. And I really fucking, like, it pains me to say this, but they're being really fucking smart about what they're doing, and we're being really fucking dumb about what we're doing. And it's a painful thing to watch. But I think, Kostin, you brought in the right dimensions of how this game is being played. The US seems to be obsessed with this trajectory of like AI for exceptionalism, right? Like, fuck what AI can do right now. The whole point is that we're like racing to the moon to find out the greatest, deepest possible, like what the Burj Khalifa of AI accomplishments can be, right? Like, how far do we push this to unlock some new tier of intelligence that isn't what we already know? And I don't get the sense that the Chinese are really all that interested in that goal, and they're actually going at it in a completely different dimension, which is more about like the distribution of this capability.
The Belt and Road version.
Well, think about it this way, right? Like it's about marbling the capability into every aspect of life. And that is about access. It's about, more people knowing how to use it, more people having access to a lot of what you would consider sort of like step-down transformers, right? Things that make things more accessible to more people. And at that point, you can start to see that it doesn't really matter what the greatest, most insane capability of AI really is, when you can also just go, hey, if you think about it as like sort of density of intelligence as it is distributed through a society, right? Like, we don't need every place to be a research center. We don't need every building to be a university. If every place on Earth by sheer density had a factor of 3 intelligence, and you can push that to be a factor of 6, that is a meaningful something. And what do we mean by that, right? Like, how much human intelligence is required for processes that people engage in every day? Food delivery, pickups of whatever, like supplying a kitchen, supplying a staff, right? Like, there's so many different things that currently require human evaluative power that don't need to be human derived. You can probably decide what orders of materials go into refilling a kitchen with a normal model right now, right? And my point is simply, anywhere that you still see human beings needing to get involved in these sorts of processes, because that's just the way we do things, those are opportunities for AI to get marbled into everybody's lives in ways that I think people wouldn't complain about. I don't think anybody's fucking like ecstatic to sit there and think about like, oh, how often do we need to refill the toilet paper in the place and like the paper towels and just shit like that. Like, the issue is this mentality of exceptionalism means that we're not putting any energy or investment into the distribution factor. And like, it is, I mean, maybe it is the right thing that we're thinking about this shit like the Manhattan Project or like, getting to the moon. Yeah, that was one really exceptional thing. And what you get out of it is one really exceptional outcome. You show sort of what the greatest possible extension of human capability is. But that doesn't diffuse it into culture. That doesn't make it available to everybody. That doesn't change the lives of every person around you. Even when we talk about like curing cancer, the thing on the other side of the amazing intellectual feat that it will take to cure cancer is a whole lot of manufacturing and training and like production and logistics that will go into getting a cure for cancer into the hands of people who have cancer and need a cure. And like, we just are not doing jack shit about that other side of the curve. And it is fucking maddening, because I think it's systemic and I don't know what the fuck we're doing.
I think it's fascinating that while we have grumble about our own problems with US AI, China is moving on with, I think they announced, based in Shanghai, a World Artificial Intelligence Cooperation Organization to set global AI rules, standards, development priorities. The United Nations was there at this big event.
I forgot we had a United Nations.
China talked about partnering, providing 5,000 AI training opportunities for developing countries. 30 countries will get an AI-powered weather warning system. So the distribution piece is quite like the Belt and Road Initiative of just like, hey, there's a Chinese open stack here that we can kind of ship and get it using it throughout Africa and Latin America. And is there any worry at all that we're being left behind?
I mean, they're mocking us, right? Like, this is some soft power shit, right? Like, walking out and being like, yeah, the Americans are being greedy and selfish and they're only worried about themselves. She just walked out and did the thing that we or the Europeans would normally do, right? Like, here's the table, we're going to set the norms, we're going to provide for everybody. You're like, I mean,
things are backwards, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're playing us, they're doing it really well. And I think the best thing that people can pray for right now from the US side is that we're somehow once again in a Cold War style, like Soviet bluff, where it turns out that like the Chinese are doing all this magnanimous stuff and then somebody pulls behind the curtain and in reality they're broke, right? In reality, they, all the token minting is like burning into their reserves, and they're wasting all this money making this AI shit, and it turns out that it's like cratering their country. I don't think that that's the case, right? Like, I really don't think that's going to happen. But like, that's really the only moment of solace like you can grab from history, is like just hoping that they're overextending, and somehow we're not being complete fools about how we go about this. But like, looking at the state of our economy and the global economy and a lot of shit in between, I don't know that there's a good outcome for anybody involved in this shit.
I
Not
think the
just
real
the
Cold War
Chinese.
is happening right here in the US. I'm going to point you to a David Sachs tweet in response to the news that Kimi K3 is now #1 on this front-end code arena, surpassing Fable 5, Claude Fable 5. David Sachs had this to say: "This is concerning. For the first time, a Chinese model, Kimi K3, has taken #1 on the front-end coding arena and is scoring at or near the frontier and other benchmarks. Meanwhile, America is tying itself in knots. Politicians and bureaucrats are banning new data centers, on state regulations, and pushing for new federal agencies to pre-approve their frontier models," which is kind of like the political games being played here. He says this is how you lose the AI race. The rest of the world won't play by our rules if we bog ourselves down. So there are two camps here. One that was, built up and promoting the US AI stack open and available even for China, give China the chips and so on. And then the other school of thought was like, hey, we have to keep these advanced chips away from China because blah, 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 we can't trust. The real Cold War is happening right here around that. And it seems like Sachs has lost all the way. He's the former cybersecurity AI czar. I think his time, the 160-day special employee thing ended, and he's now out of there. But he's pointing to the real problem here.
I think that, David Sachs is pointing to a real problem. I don't know. Like, I like your framing about saying, like, the real war is happening here. And in a sense, it is, right? Because anything the Chinese are doing will kind of benefit us, right? Like, if their whole thing is inclusivity and being open and whatever, like, we are receiving downstream of like what they're doing. But I think that points to the real problem, which is that in America, AI right now is essentially equated with the success of like 3 companies. And those 3 companies are not really acting in ways that are really all that necessarily beneficial or directly harmonious with anybody else in any other industry, right? Like, they're stomping into other industries and displacing incumbents and picking favorites, and sort of there's this constant narrative of exceptionalism in the sense of like the obsession with AGI means that they're displacing all investment from everybody else. They're actually keeping anybody from starting any companies that will do the diffusion and supported distribution of the things that they're building. So like, they're really keeping the system in a state of shock, where nobody can move, no money's moving, nobody's really sure what to do. How do you apply what they're doing when like, oh, they're going to put out a feature, right? And our whole fucking company is useless now, right? Like, that kind of bullshit, which is bullshit. It is complete bullshit, right? Like, at the end of the day, they can build God in the machine and it's still going to be in a tab on a machine, right? Like, you need to fucking get that somehow into the hands of other people, into, reliable applications that are actually contextually suited to other industries, right? Like, I don't give a fuck what you made. If you want to work in the medical space, people are going to have to figure out how to make it HIPAA compliant and safe to whatever. And like, there are requirements for what is an acceptable answer in the medical field that are different from the engineering field, like, just by virtue of, the stakes that are involved. And that means that you need specialists and you need companies that are involved in the services industry and like, just making specific applications. If these people don't stop with this AGI bullshit and actually get investors to be open and receptive to supporting ecosystems that are AI native for other industries, I don't know what the fuck they're building for. I don't know what all this capacity is going to be for, because it's just for like people to wank around with vibe-coded bullshit websites all day, but it isn't actually enabling other industry.
I don't know. Kostin, do you have any misgivings at all about using Chinese models, like from a geopolitical point of view, from a privacy point of view, any of that stuff? or
When,
you're just like happy and
so
comfortable
let's be
using it?
I mean, let's be honest here. There are alternatives, right? So we have Gemma 4 coming out of Google. We have GPT OSS out of ChatGPT. Now there's a bunch of new models coming out of Germany. Of course, there's French models. So there are alternatives. But
Meta Ultra Spark
uh,
thingy,
yeah,
maybe.
Muse, right? Muse,
Muse,
Yeah.
Muse out of
Muse
Meta.
Spark.
Um, so there are alternatives, but the reality is that it feels to me that if you want the best, if you want the best, then at the moment the best, like the best performing models, they do come out of China, and it feels like there is more drive and there's more energy and there's more determination on the Chinese side of things to release new research in this field than there is from let's say other places. I think that we are all running around our tails. We're trying to avoid the big elephant in the room, and maybe you guys will get upset at me when I'll say it, but like there isn't enough discussion around the fact that 16% of all AI researchers are Chinese, or like the best AI researchers in the world are Chinese. I think Jensen Huang was
He made the
talking
point
about
on
it as
that
well.
podcast. Yes.
He made a point, right? He said like, look, 60% of the best AI researchers in the world are Chinese. Even if you like it or don't like it, that's a reality. And you
forget
can't
about.
ignore it. You can't ignore this.
I want to point out to you, Costin, I think you brought it to my attention earlier this week. Grok 5.4. All of their announcements were made by researchers. It feels like
4.5, you mean? Grok 4.5.
Sorry, 4.5. It feels like XAI is just run by I don't know if they're Americans, but folks.
The vast majority, right? The vast majority of
Yes, all
researchers
the
at XAI,
announcements,
they're
all
Chinese,
the tweets,
right?
all the congratulations to my teammates and so on was just all Chinese folks. So even in our American companies here, it feels very much like
Well, where the fuck are you supposed to go to like actually get some kind of grounding in this? Like, I think what you're seeing in AI, right? Like, of course, there's a bunch of like PhDs and people who are already in the machine learning track of whatever. And then you have people who are like working in the frontier labs. I'm curious, is it like cyber, right? Where like if you aren't rubbing shoulders with people that are practicing, you're not going to learn the techniques, or like you're not going to have access to the infrastructure or access to the data. Or is it like, you know, anybody with a dollar and a dream can sort of get in there and become an AI engineer? And I mean like a real AI engineer, not, you know, just like, oh, we're good at harness stuff. Like, I'm good at harness stuff. I'm not out here like making models, right? Like there's a difference in what part of the stack you can play in. I'm curious about that, because if it's anything like cyber, then I would be looking at the Chinese with a certain amount of envy, just because of the sheer amount of companies and models and, you know, just infrastructure and whatever, and different opportunities to apply that to industry in a profitable way.
In
that
an
seem to be
environment that's
available
promoting
in,
open models and kind of just like evangelizing it in that way.
Whereas here is like, did you get a job at Anthropic, OpenAI, or Google DeepMind? No? Well, I guess AI is not for you, son, right? Like, what are you going to go do?
Hey, we all have a mutual friend who was in Shanghai for this event. And what did he describe it to us as, Costin? Mind-blowing, right? It's mind-blowing
right?
what they're doing with
It's
AI
like,
around robotics.
everywhere.
Yeah.
An infinite number of rooms, infinite halls, right? Full of AI, like all sorts of AI, right? Or robots, whatever you want.
Yeah, think about it like it sounded to me like it was 5 RSA show floors with just AI innovations everywhere, from robotics to hands to this to that. And this is someone, a mutual friend of ours who traveled to these conferences representing international agency. He was blown away. So I think we here in the US have our heads in the sand a little bit with our like bullshit AI hackathons happening over here, when like some real amazing things are going. I don't know. It feels like we're also informationally in the dark until China comes out and does their big showcase.
Yeah, because of the forces involved. I'm sorry, like, guys, like, of course we're in the dark. These companies are all making advancements and then treating them like intellectual property, and they don't want people talking to each other about how this works and how that, and like, look, I think the main difference here is going to be a matter of, like, as always, the economics and where the incentives are coming from, right? The Chinese, there's a lot of funding coming out of the Chinese government. There's a lot of, like, these darling, like, national champion companies are being promoted and funded to do these things. And when that happens, what ends up coming out is something that is more like, the interest seems to be a lot more in, like, the distribution and pushing it into the hands of people than it is like, oh, we need to hoard this, this one way of doing mid training needs to stay with us, because if our competitors on the other side of San Francisco, like, find out about it, then we're all back to parity, because then we all know how to do the same thing. It's like, look, maybe at the end of the day, we shouldn't be shitting on the Frontier Labs. Like, they have their money's coming from these ridiculous, like, investment mega machines right now. I think what might be just missing is, like, where's the U.S. government in how they fund these things, right? Like, where is the U.S. government in, like, people having more infrastructure tokens or whatever, advanced financing for neo clouds in America? I don't know. I don't know what it has to be, but, it's not one company that's putting together that AI symposium, right? Like, there's a lot of government coordination on the Chinese side that's saying, bring every industry into this thing and make sure they all have access to whatever. That just doesn't happen in the US right now.
You ask, where is the US government? May I answer?
Please.
Trump administration
Please.
this week unveiled an AI-supported clearinghouse for cyber vulnerabilities called Gold Eagle. The project is called Gold Eagle. It's housed in the Treasury Department with support from the Pentagon, the Department of Homeland Security, and CISA. And as our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Juanito, what is Gold Eagle?
What is this Gold Eagle?
Is this Gold Eagle the same eagle that there's like the Gold Eagle on the White House, or is it like a different Gold Eagle?
Absolutely, it is the exact same Gold Eagle. No, I don't know, man. I read the story same as anybody else, and I don't have strong negative feelings about it. What I have is, like, mostly curiosity, right? Like, okay, sounds cool. I'm happy anytime you put, like, a multi-stakeholder initiative with some proper, like, White House support. Is it a thing meant to be for industry, or is it a thing meant only for the government, right? Like,
Nobody
when
knows
you say
what the fuck it is.
When you say clearinghouse, right, like, that entails that there's coordination with the outside. Like, look, we're about it, right? Like, we've been waiting. The things that we were all involved in the private sector kind of fell apart with the end of the last administration. So, like, if these are the new things, like, cool, but, let us know, right? Like, we'd love to be involved. I don't know. I don't know.
Gold Eagle was established in President Trump's June 2nd executive order promoting advanced AI innovation and security. This new model will leverage frontier AI capabilities to continue. I don't know. It's a lot of word salad, blah, blah, blah. The disappointing thing is that I read a bunch of news stories about it by journalists who should have been, like, beaten in the background and trying to get the answer to this. And they have no idea what they're reporting either. So it's just like, I'll read a sentence from an article on The Record. This is the recorded future publication. It says, Gold Eagle, the result of a White House executive order published last month, uses AI to detect and fix cyber vulnerabilities in software networks. Like, the project uses AI. It's just, like, maddening that we can't get proper reporting or people to actually explain what this thing is. Clearinghouse suggests that they are going to be, are we heading into you have to report vulnerabilities into the government first before? Are we getting into a China situation there? The U.S. government control of this AI thing is just so weird to me. Just very weird to me.
Could it be they're just trying to solve this problem that we mentioned a few episodes ago, that, like, the whole CVE system, it made sense when the number of CVEs was manageable, but when you have, like, millions of vulnerabilities being reported, like, no one can get a hand on what's going on. So the clearinghouse will deconflict and make sure the resources are not being wasted fixing or scanning for the same vulnerabilities. So perhaps like a system where you can report vulnerabilities, get a CVE number, like even automatically a 64-bit CVE number or something like that, and just move on, something like that. The
I wonder why
triage.
the Treasury. Why is it under the Treasury Department? Like, there's
You
some
need to
interesting
pay for
nuances
it.
here
You
where I'm
need
like,
to put some money into it. You need to buy some, I don't know, bonds in order to access it.
Treasury controls export controls. I mean, this is kind of like one of those. I don't know. I don't know. Speaking of millions of vulnerabilities, this was Patch Tuesday as well. We got the mother of all
Ah,
releases from Microsoft. They're like the bellwether to look at because Microsoft patched 622 CVEs for the
my
month of
God.
July, the most in its history. And the guys at ZDI that tracks these things for a living just put out a chart that's so fascinating to me. In all the years, we in July 2026, we're at 1,380 CVEs patched so far. Last year was 1,139. So in half a year, we already surpassed last year's total, which surpassed the previous year's total, and it's just exponentially just growing at this rate of this 10x vulnerability patching. I don't know how we're going to get on top of patching all these things. We couldn't patch the shit we had 6 months ago before AI started dumping all of this on us. So any thoughts on what we saw to Microsoft Patch Tuesday? We got 2 exploited 0 days, 622 CVEs, just every product affected. It looks very much like they're doing a big, massive internal investment in probably using these Frontier Labs tools and their own internal tools to ferret out
uh,
vulnerabilities. It's a good thing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the software is a lot more secure today than it
wait,
was
is this
last
all
week.
coming from their own investment in it, or is this like people reporting more to them? Do we know?
I didn't look at the credits. I'm assuming the majority is probably externally reported, but I mean, I don't know. I'm giving
Just,
them the benefit of the doubt.
why? Why would you give
They
them the
have a thing
benefit of the
called
doubt?
M dash apparently.
Yeah, are they using it for themselves? Right? Like I'm not giving Microsoft the benefit of the doubt on shit. Like right now they're not owed the benefit of the doubt on anything. So,
Hey, if
you know.
622 CVEs get ferreted out of the system, that's a good thing. I always say we had this conversation when I worked at Intel and I went in there. They had these old school folks. I'll tell a quick story. They had these old school folks who thought that any conversation or disclosure of anything vulnerability is inherently a bad thing. It shows that we have vulnerabilities. And I'm trying to, it took me months to like sit in meetings and say, listen, the software today than it was yesterday because we pushed this patch. It's important for us to go celebrate the fact that we pushed this patch. It was a mindset change. I think even here, when you see Microsoft software getting better and better, at least from the vendor pushing a patch point of view, I'm willing to say, hey,
Look, all I'm saying is I want to give credit to whoever's investing. That's it. And I
fair
and I'm
enough.
and that's not even aimed at Microsoft really, because I'm sure Microsoft is continuing to do things to improve their own code base, but I think this is a fine point that is worth paying a lot of attention to right now when it comes to, your Fortinets, your Avantis and your whatevers, where it's like, yeah, as far as we can tell, you're not investing in shit. Like we're just lucky that you're willing to acknowledge when somebody else lets you know that you have a vulnerability, right? With Microsoft, I imagine it's a combination of things, right? Like there's got to
Yeah.
be people reporting and it's got to be them doing their own thing, but I'm not going to assume, right? Like I'm not willing to just give it to them under the circumstances, right?
Costin, your
The uh,
10x, your
the
10x numbers are coming to pass.
let's see. I thought that like the most interesting news about this past Tuesday was that the researcher Nightmare Eclipse that we talked about in the past dumped another 0 day on Wednesday, like the exploit Wednesday, the famous exploit Wednesday, to kind of maximize the damage and the impact on Microsoft. At the moment, there's no patch for this new exploit that just got dropped 1 day after Patch Tuesday. Why would you drop something the next day after Patch Tuesday? Obviously, because you want
Because
that
fuck you,
to
that's why.
live as long as possible to maximize the pain on Microsoft to make them, to hurt them as longer as possible and to hurt them as bad as
Oh,
Yeah.
possible.
I had the
womp
same feeling.
womp.
I had the same feeling Friday night when someone dropped an exploit for WordPress core remote code execution vulnerability.
Who else was dropping exploits on Fridays against your
Friday
software?
night, exactly. People
Who was
scrambling
doing
on the
that?
weekend to patch. And WordPress might sound like a
I
CMS
remember
software.
someone.
Listen, WordPress is in every organization, everywhere in the world. Like, this is what people use to manage and power their websites and blogs and so on. So,
Sure.
thoughts and prayers to the folks who
we worked
Go ahead.
on some other things that, someone was reporting to us on Fridays, if you remember it. You remember.
Yes. Why are you picking on Tavis again?
You leave
my
Tavis
favorite
alone,
topic.
okay?
Leave Tavis alone. Okay, I'll leave him alone.
Shout out
I'm
to
just
all-
saying. I'm saying, like, whatever you guys want to say here, whatever. I think it's,
Dude, I mean, look, Tavis is over at Caliph, and like Caliph they've been legit about like all these disclosures and stuff.
Yeah,
so
they've been the
no
ones. They've
shade
been the
there.
ones on top of this WordPress all-day thing over the weekend. I mean, listen, if you have a WordPress installation, scramble and patch this thing. It's really, really, really bad. Can we do some APT stuff quickly, Costin?
Ooh,
We
APT
got
stuff.
a word from
You
Symantec.
remember?
Symantec by
APTs?
Carbon Black by Broadcom.
What?
Is that the name? Symantec published
Why you
on
gotta do
Daxin.
them like that?
Is it
On Daxin?
Symantec
How do you
by
say it?
Carbon Black AI, or is just Carbon Black?
Don't.
these
Why you
days?
gotta do them like that? You guys.
No, I'm just
Like,
messing with my
you
friends over
be
there.
kind to our
Symantec by
Symantec
Carbon
friends.
Black by Broadcom. Researchers discovered the reemergence of backdoor.daxin, a highly sophisticated kernel mode rootkit attributed to a China-linked APT actor. The dwell time here is fascinating, Costin. 13-year potential dwell time in this thing. Are you familiar with this Daxin?
I mean, it's one of these like famous paleontology stories, if you want, which will make some people super overly excited, and other people will just skip. No, but like there's a famous thing here which is called X4L. If you Google X4L, exactly like that, EXFOREL, X4L, which is actually coming from X4L. This is a fascinating story from back in the days that was it Bruce Deng at Microsoft that wrote about it? I may be mistaken here, but I think
Artem Baranov.
was Artyom Baranov at Microsoft who wrote about it.
Not at Microsoft, but he wrote the original blog, I think, around that. It might
There
have
was
been.
also-
Sorry. Microsoft wrote a blog about the aerospace thing, and then
Yes.
Artem wrote the public blog detailing the malware,
The
if I remember
X4L.
correctly.
So
Yeah.
one of these paleontology stories, maybe from is it 20 years ago? It has to be about 20 years ago. About a kind of fascinating piece of malware. One of these things, like one of a kind, which later when the shadow brokers dropped their SIGs, like the toolkit from the equation group, like the famous one with the SIGs that
Territorial
Jax took,
dispute.
and the territorial dispute that Jax took and piggybacked and found FAST16 and so on. So one of those SIGs in there was actually for this particular thingy, like the tool set that X4L is part of. And I think it was Symantec a couple of years ago when they published about like the re-emergence of X4L, which was, in my opinion, a fantastic discovery. And again, once again, it's fascinating to get these signs, like, small pieces and bones of this dinosaur thingy. In this particular case, I think Symantec talks about the fact that the malware had compilation timestamps from 2013, meaning that the intrusion persisted undetected for 13 years. It's just mind-blowing, but like fascinating
Single
to
victim
read.
too, right?
What's that?
It was just a single victim, a Taiwan-based subsidiary of a multinational high-tech manufacturer. So it's the kind of cyber espionage across the water there.
Yeah, what is interesting here is with the SIGs, with the samples which are under that signature in the territorial dispute, we found more samples and we associated that with the hacking group that is apparently behind this, which did not seem, I think, that back at the time as an APT group. So it's maybe difficult to classify it as an APT group. It's more like this hacking collective of highly, skilled people.
Jian team.
Exactly, the Shanjian team, which is actually a string that appears in one of their tools.
I can't believe I still remember.
You guys
that.
are like
yeah.
just dropping like some behind the scenes inside baseball stuff. The
Uh,
audience
we
is
worked
it's
on this
one of
shit.
these fascinating stories that I think more people should look into because
Why?
it's just because these kind of tool sets are very, very rare. So typically what do you see? Like you go and you read out the kind of blogs and stories that everyone writes about, and what are they about? Well, the same groups that everyone writes about, the same ransomware attacks that everyone writes about, the same, I don't know, Russian APT groups that everyone writes about. What is, let's say, what are the things that stand out from all this noise? Are typically the kind of things that maybe there's just one victim out there. There's just like one computer. You can just imagine there's just one victim for this malware. One example here would be this Angry Spark that Jen wrote about, or this thing, or X4L, or obviously Fast16, or over the years we've seen many and many of these cases, and the companies that can discover and write about these unique things, that they just stand out in the forest of noise, is very, very rare. So we don't see these kind of stories very often. So whenever there's a new sample from backdoor Daxin, which is what Symantec calls it, there's like a new X4L related sample. These are, little gems, if you want, like for researchers and reverse engineers. These are extremely special things that you don't get to see very often nowadays. This doesn't make sense to spend so many resources and effort to build these things nowadays, right? You can just build like some shitty thing in Python or Rust or Golang with AI and just drop it and, never look back, move on. So the fact that there are still cases where people put a lot of energy into building something beautiful and small and very effective, staying under the radar with some crazy ideas in there, is what makes it so fascinating. And again, like the mirage of paleontology, if you want, is all about analyzing these unusual dinosaur bones. So that's why I think this is a very cool blog from Symantec.
There's so much behind that. Like if you keep pulling on that thread, there's a really interesting shout out to Silas Cutler who's done a lot of this work. And like we spent some time on that signature. I'm trying to remember which one it was off the top of my head. It's like 617 or 627 or something, like one of those. I think. But I remember we worked on this back in the day, and there's
630.
630?
Yeah. There's a lot of other related rootkits from the time, and if you keep pulling that thread, it comes back to an interesting known Chinese developer from back in those days that then becomes quite a fixture in the Chinese malware for government ecosystem. So it's not an ancient story. Like I think this is one of those cases where cyber paleontology pays off, because you realize that interesting APT from back then points to a developer who is an interesting central character of the APT ecosystem in China today. It's just one of those very fun ones where you go, it's worth doing this kind of work. Like, despite
Did we
what
get
people
any
say.
useful IOCs, any useful indicators to do any sort of next step research, Costin?
there are two hashes in the blog, I think, that Semantic shared, and some kind of other indicators of compromise, which is like file names. srt64.sys is one example. Like I said, this is it's a fascinating thing. I didn't have much time to look into this particular story, as it dropped, what is it, 3 days ago, something like this.
It just came out a couple of days
Like
ago.
it feels, by the way, it feels that there are like so many things being published these days. The amount of news stories like dropping pretty much everywhere. There's like so many things, and there's like such a little time to look into all these different stories. But for sure, this one deserves a little bit more attention.
On the APT front, Juanito, your team at Sentinel Labs also published on some rival cyber espionage teams targeting a Pakistan police department, one of those like really interesting parts of the world that we don't often hear from. What's the significance of this one?
I mean, it was a really interesting piece by Alex Milankowski and Julian Ferdinand Vogel over at Recorded Future, and I love Julian's work, right? So anytime he pushes anything, I mean, I love this pairing where like Alex and Julian kind of keep working together, and they keep pulling out some cool stuff. But essentially, it just looks like you've got this interesting convergence of a few different APT actors hacking this like Balochistan police department. And like what I love about the overlap is it kind of shows you how many different how many different interests can be at play in the same region, right? Like you've got threat actors that are there for their own sort of like skirmishes with India and like what's happening with their motivation, right? And that's probably why Bitter is there. And at the same time, you've got these, Chinese actors who are interested in like the security of folks on the ground because of recent incidents. It's nice to see one of those that still reminds you of why people do cyber espionage, and it kind of has these like interesting geopolitical dimensions in places that we don't think about. So it's a great piece. It's worth checking out, and got some interesting coverage as well.
Yeah, I thought AJ, our buddy AJ from Reuters, actually published a piece on this. Good to see IOX included as well. Costin, there was also a GigaWipo publication from Microsoft Threat Intel this week. I get excited when Microsoft Threat Intel put out anything because we've been over like what they publish and don't publish. In this case, they identify a destructive wiping activity in October 2025, uncovered a Go-based backdoor based on GigaWipo command, combining command and control capabilities with multiple destructive payloads, including disk wiping, fake ransomware, and system sabotage. What did you make of this report? I know you were looking at it and scratching your head earlier.
I was initially, I was like wondering, why isn't there like any good attribution in this blog, right? What's going on here? What are they hiding? Like, why isn't like, is this like being used in Ukraine? Like typically nowadays when you hear about wipers,
They didn't say anything, not even
they didn't say anything,
nothing.
right? But I think, looking a bit at this story, I think this is related to an Iranian threat actor. So there's like some code similarity between this and what is known as Blue Rabbit, which is one of these Iranian wipers. So if I'm not mistaken, I think this is an Iranian operation, one of those things. Just
why is it so hard for them to say that?
Still very weird. There's like no words. Is it because of the war in Iran? I don't know. Is it because nobody wants to mention the war in Iran? Like, is it straight open? Probably not. I don't know. Nowadays, is the war still going on? Is it like peace? Is the court? Who knows?
Why wouldn't you name the victims? Like,
yeah, interesting, right? Interesting.
Just weird.
It's a bit weird, but it looks like this is related to Iran. So it's not Ukraine for once, but it's an Iranian related operation.
If Costin has to guess, like you've defeated the purpose of publishing a blog, right?
What's the point of publishing this shit?
What's the point of publishing something if someone like Costin, who is as plugged in as anyone else, has to like roll their eyes between the lines?
Everyone, like, look, what I learned is that everyone has an agenda, and like typically when so there's like two situations here. Was it the X-Files? It's the X-Files, right? You want to believe?
Hey, I'm with you, man.
Well, speaking of that, like a bunch of new videos dropped, which are
People
like
are gonna be so
mind-blowing.
pissed that I interrupted you. Like,
Yes,
please go back to
like
what you
these
were saying.
videos, some of them are like people are losing their mind over the new videos from the Department of War, like the new UFO videos. But anyways, yeah,
You forgot where you broke his train of
sorry.
thought.
I'm
broke my
sorry.
train of
This
thought.
thing. Let me.
What were you asking again?
I'm gonna move on to the next thing. Do you know this
Oh, wow.
Denis Obrezkov guy? Are you
Which
familiar
one?
with Denis Obrezkov?
I'm not.
Obrezkov?
I know who. I like. Well, first of all, like I was saying, everyone has an agenda, including you, by the way. When you're asking me if I know who is Denis Obrezkov or Obrezkov, and in particular with the Microsoft blog, and if everyone has an agenda, I would assume they do have an agenda, and perhaps the agenda here is like to attract attention to this without saying something that could attract attention from the people who care about who's hyping or not hyping the war in Iran, or like who's saying that the war in Iran is happening or not happening. But again, that's just my guess. In any case, it is interesting for sure. Like this wiper and the whole Iran context around it, and the fact that there's no attribution in there, and like this mystery around it. I think, yeah, it deserves a little attention, and I think that the holding on the Iran side of things, it may be intentional.
I mentioned this
But
Denis Obrezkov.
You
We got a
mentioned
story.
Denis Obrezkov, right?
We
Who's
got a
that?
story out of Rafael Satter and Anton Zerebev.
And we discussed Denis Obrezkov in episode 73 last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Correcto.
Oh, I forgot about this
we were
shit.
doing conjecture on whether he was at SAS in Thailand because he had gotten arrested there. A
Right,
computer security expert facing U.S. hacking charges.
Mm-hmm.
And the new reporting says he previously held a senior position at Moscow-based antivirus firm Kaspersky Lab in Boston.
Heard of it?
According to leaked salary records, right? Or something like
Correct, according to leaked salary records. So who's
leaked them?
leaking salary
Who's
records?
leaking?
Records from Kaspersky.
Hey.
So someone leaked Kaspersky's salary or employment records. Very interesting.
Is this
Although the
some,
alleged hacking activity took place
Casper
after he
secret
left
thing?
Kaspersky. Oh yeah, that's crossed my mind. Is it the Casper? Is this a
the
Casper
Casper
secret
secret?
thing? I don't know.
Whoa, what? Who knows?
This is the guy was allegedly charged with being behind one of the typhoons, right? And apparently he worked at
Laundry
Kaspersky
Bear?
in Boston between 2017 and
Not
2019.
the typhoons,
Not typhoons,
the
but
bears.
laundry bear.
Laundry Bear. Was it Laundry Bear?
Yes.
Yeah.
According to U.S. prosecutors, he spent 5 years before that working for Russia's domestic intelligence service known as the FSB. Then he worked at Kaspersky. Then after that, again, he was allegedly picked up for hacking. So what was he doing at Kaspersky in that 2 years, Costin?
Cleaning up his act.
First of all, it's interesting, like very interesting to read this article. And at the same time, I think Rafael is an amazing journalist, obviously very experienced. And I think AJ was also looking into this story. So there were like a lot of journalists looking into the story, but they are all missing the point. All these journalists, I think they asked also Kaspersky Lab to confirm or not if he was working there. Like they are not right, kind of asking the right questions. So it doesn't like really matter if he was working there or not. Yeah, I mean, the question they should be asking is quite different. I don't know, but just a different question. I don't think they're asking the right questions. Because if they were asking the right questions, they would get a better answer.
What is the answer you want?
What can you say?
I don't know. Like I'm not a journalist.
Confucius,
so what do I know?
Costin say.
Okay, so you don't want to comment on it beyond that?
Question.
I don't know.
I don't know what to comment beyond that. I mean, like.
Well, you're saying they're not asking the right
here.
questions. So, like, you're suggesting that there's some other questions that could derive some better answers. Like, no guidance to these journalists. They need your help.
They can reach out.
They need your help.
They can reach out, sure.
Wow.
But let me say one thing. Like people, by the way, the fact that he worked there for 2 years, it may mean something or it may actually mean nothing. Like sometimes people don't really understand
There's
how
fine
big this
people on both
company is.
sides.
No, but like it's a huge company. Like,
Yeah.
just imagine like you have like guys, let's say, working for I don't know, Lockheed Martin or Oracle or Microsoft. Like these are huge companies. Even in Russia, Kaspersky is a huge company. The fact that he worked there, it may mean something or it may simply mean nothing at all. Um, like I said, the issue here is like that the journalists, maybe they're not asking the right questions. I'm quite impressed by the fact that they got access to the employment or salary records, which is quite impressive. Still no idea how that happened, but it kind of suggests some kind of an insider or talking to like somebody inside the company. I would assume that someone like that was probably not in R&D. So if you understand like the structure of these companies, in general, be it security companies, there's, let's say, different groups and divisions. There's maybe research and development. In R&D, there are also groups. Some are them like dealing with malware. Some are like processes. Some are like designers, architects, infrastructure, and so on, right? Then in companies in general, you have like marketing, you have PR, then you have people doing services, maybe you have like people doing pen testing or like security research or red teaming or maybe like incident response or outsourcing and so on and so on. And I think if you really want to understand what someone was doing in some company, what you need to understand is like what position did they have there and in which department. Without that, we're just, talking about nothing. The moment you understand like what position somebody has in a company and what kind of access they have, what kind of a job description, what kind of tasks or what are like their responsibilities, then you understand
Then you're
more
asking the
about
right
someone.
questions.
Yep.
Juanito, any thought on this at all?
I don't fucking know. Like, I mean, Kosten's thinking about it the right way, but mostly I just have, without knowing kind of where this person sat, when, where, and how. Like, the KL part doesn't make a whole lot of difference.
Well,
It's
like I
always
said,
going to trigger
I
like
never
some
heard
sort of
about his
controversy,
name.
though. If you dump KL's name alongside a guy who is held up for
Well,
cyber,
what is being implied? And let's
exactly.
just say the quiet part out loud, right? Like, it is the implication that KL houses, former or current intelligence officers. Is the implication that KL ran any kind of operation involved with that? Like, if that's what's being implied, that's really interesting. Let's, have that conversation on the basis of whatever's being said there. If the thing is simply like the dude worked there, you're like, okay, well, yeah, it's somebody in
Okay.
that area, right? Like, at best, you can say if he had an offensive background, it kind of negates what we expect from Eugene, where he wouldn't be hiring somebody with an offensive background, if that's the case. But I'm just like, it's not enough information. I'm not saying we don't want to go there. Like, happy to go there, but give us something, right? Like, I don't know where the fuck this dude sat and what he did, right?
And by the way, remember that one of the narratives that was being pushed around, what was it, 2016, 17, 18, was that we need to get rid of this software, of this company, because of unacceptable risks, right? That they could be, or perhaps they might, whatever, or like there is a certain possibility due to the fact that it's running in kernel mode, which means it might something. So there are like all these wordings around might, risk, probability, could, perhaps. I was thinking that at some point the same playbook can be deployed against Chinese AI models, and if it will be deployed against Chinese AI models, in the sense like, do you guys really want to have your operations run by this Chinese model that could something, or perhaps it might be
It's
having
already the
some better.
discussion.
Oh, it's
That's
already
already
being
how you're
discussed.
talking. Yeah, it's already how it's being
This
discussed, right?
works. This kind of narrative could be, if I may use that term, it might be deployed against the Chinese models and could perhaps be used to, I don't know, blacklist them, sanction them, prevent people from actually
Dario's
using any
asking
of
for
this.
that,
Oh, he's
right?
asking
Like
for that?
Dario started to badmouth open source, open weight models, and like it was a really weird move, man. Like it made them look so weak to like go up there and try to claim that like open weight models are like a net negative. It, like in a sense, you're just making this argument that like the success of Anthropic is more important than the growth of AI in the United States as an
That's
industry.
the point President Xi was making.
It was, I mean, it was a bad fucking look. It made them look weak as shit. And like, it's crazy that you're positioning things in America where like the greater industry has like more of an interest, more of a benefit being incurred from Chinese companies than from American companies. Like, it's just wild.
We were talking to Kaspersky and we ended up at Dario. And everything circles back
Everything's
to Dario.
AI, bro.
It could
Last
be
story
related.
before we go. I want to
They
touch
could-
on this very
Everything's
quickly.
They could
computer.
all be connected, right? They could all
Possible.
be connected. And where is the Russian AI, by the way? Where is like the Russian models, like all
There's
these?
Yandex. No, in all seriousness, do you think there's a
3.5?
Yandex? There's some
Yandex
innovation
is
coming
in
out of some of
Israel,
the Russian
bro.
companies?
Where is Zvezda
Yandex is-
4? 4.1? Something like where are all like these Russian models? Like
I think Russia has their hands full.
Samolет
They don't have
2.
time. They don't have time to waste on like GPU workloads. They're a little busy with, you know, all the war. You know? That's my guess.
The last story on my list is from our friend and listener of the show, Patrick Howell O'Neill over at Bloomberg Business. He got a story on Magnet Forensics, this Canadian cybersecurity firm now owned by Thoma Bravo, filing a lawsuit against a former contractor, a guy named Mario Del Gaudio, and a company called Paradigm Shift Technologies, alleging theft of trade secrets from a previously unknown zero-day flaw in Apple's iPhone chips. This is a story I love because like there are no winners, there are two losers, and I applaud them both. I was fascinated by
shit, bro.
I was fascinated by a company thinking that their information on an Apple chip is somehow like theirs, and it hurts their bottom line. The public disclosure caused irreparable harm and continuing damage by reducing the vulnerability's value to Magnet's customers. What kind of bullshit are we listening to here? This story popped up because of the what's the name of the guy?
Who? Mario Del Gaudio.
Peter Williams?
Peter Williams.
Peter
It popped into my
Williams.
brain because of Peter Williams. This is like a company having an issue with a contractor who may or may not. It sounded like very much like Paradigm published information on the bug. Costin, what was your read
I
on
couldn't
this?
find the original post. Did you guys find it?
I mean, this is what like I was wondering. Like public disclosure caused irreparable harm. Which public disclosure? Is like a blog where this is being
It
described, or
said
what, like?
Paradigm published the research on their blog and alerted Apple to the flaw. It's like, okay, a bug got burned. Let me just sue this guy who left to go work over there.
I obviously don't know what the flaw is, but I would point out, you know, different from Peter Williams, right? Like Peter Williams, we're talking about him giving up like what is a platform and a set of vulns that are sold themselves. Here, what it sounds like to me is that Magnet Forensics is in a situation kind of like, what am I thinking of? Sarah,
Brightman?
God, my mind is just gone. The cop thing that they use for like imaging cell phones. Celebrite. Sorry, I had a bit of a hiccup there. So that they're in a position kind of like Celebrite, where like they have one vuln that they use for specific models, and that allows them to collect their forensic stuff, right? So like I point that out because I don't know how many versions of whatever magnet forensics supports, right? Because we're being told it's for A12 and A13, but I can see how losing that vuln is equivalent to losing an entire like set of support capability, right? So it's pretty shitty if you're telling me, like, I'm not saying that I support them. I'm just trying to understand what's happening here, right? Like you're telling me this dude works for you and he knows that your support for like X set of products is built on this one vuln, and then he goes work somewhere else, and then they publish on that one vuln, and Apple patches it, right? Like it's
Shout out to him.
Really?
Yeah, because patching it is what the rest of us want. Like, I want my iPhone patched. However,
Yeah,
the
but from the
information gets
sounds
to
of
Apple
it-
to get my iPhone patched, that's what I personally would applaud. Like, fuck
Sure,
these
but-
companies.
Wait, but let's think about a couple of things, right? Like from the sounds of it, it's because he goes to a competitor. So I don't think that he's like necessarily
It's not-
going in
it's
anyone's
not
best
altruistic,
interest, right? The other thing is, why does magnet forensics need a vulnerability? And this is a conversation to be had about like the state of like forensics in the macOS and iOS ecosystem, which is, that's where you kind of like, I'm not saying I don't want these devices to be more secure. I'm just looking at the situation and being like, unless we're saying magnet forensics is offering something reprehensible, if they're just offering incident response tools, right, and they need a vuln for that to work, that's a different conversation to be had about the Apple
It only
ecosystem.
works for incident response. Like, if it's a vuln, it needs fixing. It like the
But that's
idea
my-
that we should all sit back and allow private companies to hoard 0 days and vulnerabilities for use
But
in their
why
whatever.
do they need it? No, dude, like my point here is, like, are we saying that magnet forensics offers something that some kind of product offering that we disagree with?
Yes,
Because
that's
if-
what I'm
if-
saying. That's
but-
what I'm
but
saying
it-
personally. I disagree with all of these companies hoarding
Wait.
0 days for.
But what do they sell? Right? Like, I'm trying to dig a little deeper in the sense of like, my understanding is not that magnet forensics is selling a capability that's like fucked up. My understanding is they're just like a forensics company, right? Like you need to be able to pull like memory and whatever, and you're doing an incident response. And like incident response with forensics tooling is essential for things that we agree with all the fucking time. Like, oh, you know, we think this person has child pornography on their machine. Like the first fucking person you're gonna need there is somebody who's like forensically certified to collect evidence, and in order to take that to trial, right? And they're gonna need some way to collect forensic evidence on that device, and they're going to use something like magnet forensics. That's my assumption about what's being sold. So
Correct.
unless they're selling something different, I actually think that this is one situation where you have to stop and look at Apple and be like, hey, why do companies need to have
vulnerability.
vulnerabilities in order to do incident response on your devices? Aren't these use cases things that we think should be forensically imageable, right? Like, I'm not saying that I just see them as like victims of an ecosystem, right? Like, if I want to collect memory from any of my Macs, like, you're up shit's creek. It's a fucking, like, I think it's just like Volexity or bust, right? and that's to say, like, you better have access to that. That's an enterprise piece of tooling, right? So how the fuck are people supposed to do any kind of incident response on their machines?
By the way,
If it's a vulnerability in my Apple device, I want it fixed. Right? That's the top line and the bottom line for me. If it's private companies sitting on a vulnerability on an Apple device, that makes me uncomfortable. If they have to use it for memory
Yeah.
forensics or what, they only give it to law enforcement. It's a vulnerability that needs to be fixed.
Because you're thinking about it in terms of vulnerabilities, and I know how much some people like love to pretend the entirety of the world is just vulns, but like vulns are pretty fucking lame in some ways. Like when you think about the fact that I'm more concerned with what comes after a vuln, right? So if you're ever worried about, I don't know, an APT sitting on your computer and you need to figure out if they're in there, you're going to need to do some kind of forensic analysis on that machine. And the most valuable forensic analysis you can do is memory acquisition. And there's no way to do memory acquisition on any of these fucking systems. And that's a problem, right? Like, I'm not worried about the vuln. The vuln is a downstream consequence of Apple not enabling any kind of forensic capture on their devices. And I do think that's a much more worrisome situation, right?
Yeah, we don't know if I was not able to find the paradigm shift blog post. I don't know if it's
I
publicly
found it. I
available.
found it. We
You
found
Found
it.
it?
We found, yeah.
Oh.
With
Oh.
some observations, one,
Oh.
their website has expired SSL certificate, which expired 486 days ago. That's one.
But it's a beautiful website.
It is ps.tc,
Very well
by the
designed.
way. If you're looking for the website,
PS.tc. Yeah.
PC, yeah, that
The
seems
fuck
to
is
be
TC?
the website, right? And looking at the blog, like in particular, they describe this vulnerability in great detail. It feels like the kind of, root cause analysis with screenshots and debugging and everything. And at the end, if I may read you, we reported these findings to Apple product security prior to publication and coordinated disclosure together. Coordinated disclosure. Very good. We would like to thank the Apple product security team for their prompt response, constructive engagement, and cooperation throughout the disclosure process. So,
I agree.
responsible
Shout out to
disclosure, they reported it to Apple, Apple patches it, people are happy,
What
except,
does
of course,
paradigm shift sell? And what does paradigm shift sell?
Good question. So this blog was published by the PS team, PS being not Palestine, right, but Paradigm Shift,
Paradigm shift.
on
It's a premium
18th of
European
June.
cybersecurity research provider.
Premium.
European
I don't know,
owned
man.
and based.
I don't know. Right, like it all depends for me, like where did they get the vuln? Is this dude like, did you just walk out a magnet? Did you find the vuln and then decide that like you were just gonna be the one to close it? Or did you work at Magnet, know about the fucking, they're so simplistic, dude.
But
Just
I'm dead serious.
simple-minded.
I genuinely believe it. I'm not even trolling.
All
Like
this fucking vuln bullshit is so simple-minded, and they do it by design because people who like to work on vulns don't seem to like to think about
how is this
complex
Apple's
problems
problem?
with organizations. It is Apple's fucking problem. It absolutely is Apple's fucking problem. Like, how the fuck are you
you're
supposed
mad at
to
Apple
do?
for fixing a bug that like private companies were using to.
I am mad at Apple for putting us in a situation where we need vulnerabilities to do things that you need to do on your devices. You need to be able to do incident response on an iPhone. We as a society need to be able to do that for a variety of reasons. Like,
How does I verify do it without vulnerabilities? Like
they don't.
But they don't
They
do
can't.
forensics, like at this level, right? No, not like the low level forensics that require exploits for you to jailbreak the device or dump the file system. So just using available functionality.
Shout out to this lawsuit. It's just perfect.
Looking further at the website, there's like a section called Work with Us, in which you have some options like buy if you are a client seeking to acquire solutions, or dedicated research, or then there's like a button for sell if like independent researchers want to sell their proposing technologies capabilities for acquisition. So I would say they're like an exploit or vulnerability acquisition platform or
funny.
trading
That's
or
actually funnier,
marketplace. Right? Yep, that's what it looks to me.
All right, guys, close the show with some shout outs. We're heading into the 2-hour mark.
Right.
It's 1 a.m. for Costin there in Romania. I want to make sure he gets
People
to
want
bed on time.
4-hour episodes, bro. I don't know what you're talking about. 4-hour episodes.
Costin, close the show with some shout outs.
Some shout-outs. So, look, there seems to be some kind of a World Cup going on, right? Like football,
right.
all these things.
France was playing Spain
People
right
love
now in
that
the third
shit.
place game. Yeah.
Who won, by the way? I think they should be over by this
But
time.
no, the finals is on Sunday. Argentina
the small one.
versus Spain.
The small final, so-called small final, is now. It's happening right now as we are recording.
Yeah,
England
England
versus
versus France.
Who won? Let's
It's playing
check.
right now.
Don't spoil
England
it.
is
Don't
up
spoil it.
2-0.
Don't spoil it. People might not have seen
What's
it.
going
I
on?
don't
Like
know.
right now,
That's your
live.
problem if you're not watching the World Cup. The big
I
finals is on
didn't
Sunday.
start.
Argentina versus Spain. Who you got?
I'm with Argentina, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, they're
You
both really
know
good.
why, right?
They're both
I
really
was
Because
good.
the
This guy
Argentinians
has
will
no
fucking
idea what
kill
he's
us.
doing.
No,
Argentinians
no.
will fucking kill us if we say otherwise. So
Free,
we're with Argentina.
free
Shout out to
Kimi
Ferry and the boys.
tokens. Ferry, who's
What?
Ferry?
Why would you get Kimi tokens for Argentina winning?
Because
What's going on
they have
here?
like this, I don't know, gamification thingy. Then you choose a team, and every time your team wins, you get free tokens. And I chose
You
Argentina
serious?
like back like a few weeks
Oh.
ago, and I've
Go
been winning
Argentina.
tokens for
Yeah.
Kimi. So I'm with Argentina for Kimi tokens essentially. But they're like,
Wow.
no,
Bonito.
seriously, they're like good players, and how they beat England was just mind blowing. Yeah. If you don't know the story, like England was essentially 1-0 winning over Argentina until until the 85 minute when Argentina scores, so it's equal 1-1. And then in minute 90, essentially like the last, Argentina scores again, so it's 2-1. So essentially they win over England in the last 5 minutes of the game, which is just incredible.
Who knew we had a soccer correspondent on the show?
I'm totally not watching these things, but I'm flooded on the Romanian TV. Like I'm flooded with news about all these games, and I don't know. All my buddies, all my friends, they know all the players, like their names. They know like everything. Like that one is better. Like that one is faster. That one I don't know is smarter, or like this one had a broken leg and they fixed the leg, now he's back in the field, like the probabilities, it's a huge thing over there. So like shout outs to all the people watching the games. Like
Do you guys have like an online gambling culture that we have here, where
it's
everyone is
huge.
gambling on everything?
Oh, it's huge
Oh,
here.
Lord.
Absolutely, it's huge. I have like I'm totally clueless when it comes to all this online gambling, especially with related to football. I'm like I said, I'm just winning
I can't keep
tokens
up.
with Kimi, but I am kind of clueless. Absolutely. Shout outs, by the way, to our good friend Mr. Novikov, Sergey Novikov, who actually said that he will be in the US, if I'm not Vancouver, if I'm not mistaken,
What? Oh,
for one of
big
these
tip.
games. I don't know if it's like the small final or one of
That's
them.
cool.
That's cool.
One of his kids is already famous, like world-class football player. So shout outs to our good friend Mr. Novi.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And of course, shout outs to our good friend who is in China, for like our unnamed good friend who is in China for this
Our Chinese correspondent.
our Chinese correspondent,
Our
like
China AI correspondent. Yeah.
He's sourcing some model weights for us, some
I think
bespoke
that this kind of insights,
artisanal model weights.
on the ground insights about Chinese AI are priceless, probably at
Very
the moment.
valuable.
Everyone in
bring
this
him on the
world
podcast.
must be wondering, why is it that like what is their strategy? Like what is like China's gonna do next? Are they gonna release bigger models? Are they gonna release faster models? Are they gonna release new hardware? So by the way, at the same time, Huawei announced one of these high-end pods with 256 terabytes of RAM, which can host like a bunch of these very large models, right? And I think that hardware has been one of those big limitations for Chinese AI companies. They just don't have the right hardware, the fast hardware to train big models. And I think Huawei is working very, very hard to bring competitive hardware, kind of trying to challenge NVIDIA in producing enterprise high-end level hardware. So very, very interesting what's happening in China. So shout outs to our friend who is there reporting from the ground.
Yeah, the robotics piece is fascinating to me. I know Juan talked about this, the Rob Gilduta warnings in the past about like factory capacity to get up to comp. You see what's happening with some of the China, with some of the China.
Don't you have like one of these robots? Like, am I mistaken here? Like
One is
you have
playing
one
with
of
one.
them. Like you have a Unitree, right?
Yeah, Yeah, just one of the G1 Airs.
Is it doing your dishes yet?
What is
No,
it
it's
doing?
not doing literally
Feeding the
doing
cat?
anything.
It's
I
not even
think
feeding the cat. What's just
no,
taking up
no.
space in the house?
It's just positioned as an art piece next to my front door. It will probably get crucified as soon as Thomas Ridd is finished making the cross as a bit of performance art. But that's about
Close the
as much
show
as
with
we
some
know what
shout
to do
outs.
with
I
it.
gotta go to the restroom.
My
Does it
man,
know Kung Fu?
it does not know shit, but it's terrifying. Like it's heavy, and every time it moves, you're like,
Don't hit
I
me,
just
don't
feel like
hit
it's
me.
gonna run. Yeah, it's gonna run through like a glass fucking pane
It's
or
so
into
fucking
a
stupid.
car. If you like, if it comes out of range, Thomas was telling me, because Thomas has used it more than I have. If it runs out of range, it will actually just keep walking. Like if it like it goes out of the control of the
battery
Wi-Fi
dies.
thing, it will just keep going, and you're like basically have to run to make sure it doesn't run into traffic. Like these things are fucking
Needs a
terrifying.
leash.
Yeah, Mr. We call it Mr. Meeseeks in the house. It's not very useful at all. But if someone knows how to make them useful, please let me know.
Does it scare the cats?
They've
Or
never
they don't
seen it
care?
move,
Oh,
so
they
it's
never
fine.
Work.
They've never seen it move. We have the battery removed. They just like perch on it. Yeah. No.
There's a fascinating UFC-like fight between two robots that I saw.
I
like
saw
in
one
China.
kick
Saw that
one's head
video.
off, right?
One,
Yeah.
they kick its head off. It keeps fighting
Kept
without
going.
the head, right?
Yeah. It's like Juanitos that keeps walking without instructions.
Bro, the future is delightful.
You got any shout outs on your end?
Nah, man, I'm not shouting out anything. No, I'm
Anything or
kidding.
anyone?
Like all these, I don't know. I'm excited for this kind of model stuff right now.
What are you cooking? Like, tell us.
I made you a replacement FAR manager in Rust.
oh my
That's been
God.
cooking for a while. So I'm trying to finish it up. I have been working on a few different small projects right now, but mostly I'm really interested in some of this like underlying tooling and primitives that are necessary for more like recursive use of models. So that's the kind of thing that I'm like playing with, but I need a little downtime to dump stuff out of my head, and I hope to start writing again soon. But yeah, we'll see some cool shit drop this week, and then we'll take it from there.
And where to next, by the way?
I mean, Black Hat's coming up,
Black Hat.
so
Yeah, shout out to all the folks preparing for Black Hat, preparing their presentations, their
Emotionally
booths,
preparing.
their meetings. I will not be there this year, thankfully. I am just
Wow.
over casinoed out. Juanito is out there representing us. If you see him, give him a thumbs up. That's it for our show this week, guys. We've got 2 hours and 6 minutes of good stuff.
Wow.
We'll
We
talk
gotta
to you
get
next
this man
week.
like a bottle or a catheter or something to pee in so we can have longer episodes.
And be on the lookout for that blog, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
With
Let's see, let's see.
GLM52, Sol, and other goodies.
all the things,
Oh,
things. Yeah,
man.
no, I'm pretty excited about
I
this. AI
can't wait
research
about
stuff,
it. I
but,
can't wait.
yeah,
I'm
I'll-
so
I'll-
We'll
excited.
I'll
talk about
share.
it. We'll talk about it on the show next week when we may have a special guest as well. So I'll just
Can we
leave that
say
hanging in
who,
the air.
or is it secret?
I'll just leave that hanging in the air until we know
All
for
right.
sure.
All
I'll catch you
right,
guys
all right.
next week. Be good.
Bye.
Tschüss.